The History of Caliph Stork. Chapter 5. When the storks heard this through their chasm in the wall, they became almost beside themselves with joy. They ran so quickly with their long feet to the door of the ruin, that the owl could scarcely keep up with them. Thereupon spoke the Caliph to her, "Preserver of my life and that of my friend, in token of our eternal thanks for what thou hast done for us, take me as thy husband." Then he turned to the east. 3 times they bowed their long necks towards the sun, which was even now rising above the mountains, and at the same moment exclaimed, "Mutabor." In a twinkling they were restored, and in the excessive joy of their newly bestowed life, alternately laughing and weeping, were folded in each other's arms. But who can describe their astonishment when they looked around? A beautiful woman, attired as a queen, stood before them. Smiling, she gave the Caliph her hand, and said, "Know you your screech owl no longer?" It was she. The Caliph was in such transports at her beauty and pleasantness, as to cry out, that it was the most fortunate moment in his life, when he became a stork. The 3 now proceeded together to Baghdad. The Caliph found in his dress, not only the box of magic powder, but also his money bag. By means thereof, he purchased at the nearest village what was necessary for their journey, and accordingly they soon appeared before the gates of the city. Here, however, the arrival of the Caliph excited great astonishment. They had given out that he was dead, and the people were therefore highly rejoiced to have again their beloved lord. So much the more, however, burned their hatred against the impostor Misra. They proceeded to the palace, and caught the old magician and his son. The old man the Caliph sent to the same chamber in the ruin, which the princess, as a screech owl, had inhabited, and there had him hung. Unto the son, however, who understood nothing of his father's arts, he gave his choice, to die, or snuff some of the powder. Having chosen the latter, the Grand Vizier presented him the box. A hearty pinch, and the magic word of the Caliph converted him into a stork. Hasid had him locked up in an iron cage, and hung in his garden. Long and happily lived Caliph Hasid with his spouse, the princess. His pleasantest hours were always those, when in the afternoon the vizier sought him, and whenever the Caliph was in a very good humor, he would let himself down so far, as to show Mansa how he looked, when a stork. He would gravely march along, with rigid feet, up and down the chamber, make a clattering noise, wave his arms like wings, and show how, in vain, he had prostrated himself to the east, and cried out, "Moo, moo." To the princess and her children, this imitation always afforded great amusement. When, however, the Caliph clattered, and bowed, and cried out, "Too long," then the vizier would threaten him that he would disclose to his spouse what had been proposed outside the door of the Princess Screech Owl. When Selim Baruch had finished his story, the merchants declared themselves delighted therewith. "Verily, the afternoon has passed away from us without our having observed it," exclaimed one of them, throwing back the covering of the tent. "The evening wind blows cool, we can still make a good distance on our journey." To this his companions agreed. The tents were struck, and the caravan proceeded on its way in the same order in which it had come up. They rode almost all the night long, for it was refreshing and starry, whereas the day was sultry. At last they arrived at a convenient stopping place. Here they pitched their tents, and composed themselves to rest. To the stranger the merchants attended, as a most valued guest. One gave him cushions, a second covering, a third slaves. In a word, he was as well provided for as if he had been at home. The hottest hours of the day had already arrived, when they awoke again, and they unanimously determined to wait for evening in this place. After they had eaten together, they moved more closely to each other, and the young merchant, turning to the oldest, addressed him, "Selim Baruch, yesterday made a pleasant afternoon for us. Suppose it met, that you also tell us something, be it either from your long life, which has known so many adventures, or even a pretty marchen." Upon these words Achmet was silent some time, as if he were in doubt whether to tell this or that. At last he began to speak. "Dear friends, on this our journey you have proved yourselves faithful companions, and Selim also deserves my confidence. I will therefore impart to you something of my life, of which, under other circumstances, I would speak reluctantly, and, indeed, not to anyone.